Ready? All right, welcome. This is the next installment of the Broken Network podcast. I am Tom McCarthy, and this is Fat Bitch on the other end. And we are going to be talking about whether it is more important to be right or to be loving or a mix in between, especially considering the certain political climate that we have right now and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of gray area. Um, I thought it would be um, pertinent to discuss where do we draw the line? Where do we find ourselves doing the right thing? In what space is that? Uh, because there are so many conflicting areas with this, and there's so many nuances, it becomes hard for us to find the virtuous path, I think, especially with morality as it is watered down to the degree that it's been. So, the way I see it to start off is when I look at certain religious institutions or I look at certain organizations, I find that they say they're quote unquote tolerant. Okay. Tolerance isn't necessarily virtuous. And I think tolerance, in a certain sense, is almost an easy way out from having tough conversations. Uh, but where is the virtuous narrow path for that? And for instance, I'll take the Catholic Church as a good example. They've watered down a lot of their theology or just flat out refuse to preach about it in the fear of offending people or turning people away. And I find that to be almost disingenuous because it's like they just want to keep people in the seats rather than talk about the truth. And I think it's had a lot of negative effects because when you look at it in the long run, in their quote unquote attempt to be loving, they've done just the opposite and lead people down paths they shouldn't be going.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know, I
it's called
think
the
Alex
straight
can
and
talk
narrow
about that
for a
at length
reason.
too. What's that?
It's called the straight and narrow for a reason,
Right, right.
and the broader you make that path, the broader you take people away from what is really the truth.
I mean, for instance, think about the levels of tolerance that we've reached. Kanye West at one point was worth over $1 billion. If you look at certain behaviors of people in the entertainment industry or in music, we've let it devolve so much under the guise of, well, uh, we're just being tolerant and understanding. We're just, evolving. We're becoming progressive. And I think that's a load of bullshit. And I think there's been right and wrong forever for a reason. And now, with all this crap going on, it's become harder and harder and harder to navigate it, especially if you're fucked up like we are. So the whole deal is trying to figure out where do we turn? What do we do? Who do we talk to? And provide examples of good resources, honestly, because that's kind of what we're about. I think Alex can talk at length about that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as resources go, we need to have a good friendship circle that's not at the bar, that's not at the club, that's not, some like people you meet at church or people who are interested in your best interest.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
because otherwise it's just like the blind leading the blind. Um, and it, like I said before in a podcast, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. Um, I think that a lot of people tend to go in a direction that is negative or self-destructive just because they see other people doing it. Um, and having living examples of good moral people is priceless. Um, it's a lot of life is, what you surround yourself with. And if you can find like-minded people, that's what my mom always said to me, find like-minded people. Um, and the more you can do that in the direction of positivity and good things, the better off you're going to be.
I was just, well, technically, we were just listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast, and he had one phrase that really struck out to me. And he was speaking to a country musician named John Rich, and they were talking about why some of the seats in church are empty now. And Jordan Peterson, I think, astutely pointed out that the people aren't being challenged enough. Things have been made too easy. Um, if you just go to a religious institution or a group and just hear broad, ethereal platitudes, there's really no point in going if you're not challenged, if you're not improving, if you're not getting better, if you're not challenging yourself or challenging others. And conversely, on the friendship side, what kind of friend doesn't challenge his friend once in a while and point out in a kind and loving way that maybe something isn't the right thing? Just tolerating certain behaviors if they're self-destructive or selfish is not being a friend at all. It's being exactly the opposite. We all have individual freedoms, but you know, it's in this case, it's important to be right and to be loving,
Yeah,
not necessarily either or.
it's being truthful in love. It's it's not, spoiler alert, this is the answer,
Yeah.
it's it's being able to be truthful with someone in a loving, kind, generous way. Um and and being able to challenge, love is challenging. Um it always will be, and it's challenging for a reason. Um you know that's That's why so many people turned away from Jesus, right? They were challenged and they didn't want to rise to the occasion. And I think that true love is it's almost like a call to arms. Um, St. Paul says, armor yourself in what is it? Put on the full armor of God. Um, because he knows it's a battle. And he's one of the greatest examples of that battle. He was poor, he was homeless, he walked everywhere, he depended on other people for food and shelter, and he devoted his life to preaching the gospel. Um, that's not an easy life. Um,
No, look at us. I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I look at someone like Billy Graham, and I have nothing but the utmost respect. That guy laid it the fuck out. I mean, he didn't hold any punches. He didn't dilute anything. He said exactly what he believed in a loving, powerful way. And if you look at the numbers, he's preached the gospel more than anyone else in human history. Um, and what or look at someone like Archbishop Fulton Sheen. He he was also very powerful, loving, but truthful preacher. When you look at these people, this doesn't even have to be in a religious context. It can be, I mean, look at all the crap we got in Washington, man. I mean, it doesn't really matter what side of the spectrum you're on.
there's so many lies, and it's become commonplace for, like the White House press secretary to just lie through their
Just
teeth,
flat out lie to people.
just flat out lie to people and expect people to eat shit.
Yeah, exactly. Which is neither right nor loving.
Right.
Um, the whole point of what we're doing with this podcast and this group is trying to challenge people to be both of these things, right and loving, to live in the truth. Um, there's a favorite Orthodox elder of mine named Elder Gabriel of Georgia, and he lived an extremely difficult life. He stood against the Soviet Union. He was imprisoned. Um, he lived like a vagrant. He had total humility all the time. And he understood that in comparison to God, we're all just kind of nothing. And it's just not nothing, but
We're a drop in the ocean.
drop in the ocean, right? And so he had a level of humility which allowed him to be right and loving because he didn't put any impetus on himself. And when you look at someone like that and you look at their life, you can tell that everything that they did came from a center of love in their heart for God and other people. And for those of us who are really damaged and broken and lost and in the mud, that to me is a spectacular example because he was in the mud too, but he showed people the absolute truth, no matter what the cost was to himself. So when I get in these situations where it's like, okay, do I put the kid gloves on and take it easy on someone who I know is doing the wrong thing or being selfish? Um, or do I do the truth? Do I lay it out hard? Do I bring the hammer? And just like Alex said, the spoiler alert, it's love. You do everything through love, which combines both those things of being true and being loving. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm such a big fan of Jesus, is that, you know, Christian theology says that God is love. And St. Paul, I'm going to go back to him, said, I can prophecy, I can perform miracles, I can speak in tongues, I can do all these things that are great, but if I do not have love, I'm just a clanging gong. I'm a clashing cymbal.
Well, that's why people are just so frustrated with everything now because political arena, family arena, uh, a lot of it's just slinging shit on each other, just mud throwing, just name calling, just garbage behavior, and everything is distorted because truth and love are not present in any of these conversations. Um, and from my own experience, that can be especially true in the life of addiction. You live in lies. You do lies on top of lies. You just spin a web of bullshit to protect yourself, uh, and act like everything's fine. And as friends of people who have experienced that as well, I have found it difficult to lay the full truth on them in a loving, kind, but honest manner. Um, so what we're going to do here is try to build resources for people to be able to have those kind of tough conversations without preachy, obnoxious bullshit being shoved down their throat.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys to truth and love is humility, like you were talking about with Saint Gabriel. Uh, as far as perfection goes, none of us are perfect. Um, and we all have our
Except
downfalls.
Kanye West.
Well, yeah, except for Yeezy. But
Yeah, bro.
yeah, you know, it's easy to preach and just be all words. And it's easy to be kind without the truth because then you fall for everything. A man who stands for nothing falls for everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a virtue to have the truth in love. Um, and I think that virtue is important and that we're missing a lot of that these days, and especially in the West. Virtue, the idea of virtue has kind of gone by the wayside. And it's more about how much money you have, how loud you can be on social media, how many likes you get, you know, all
All
these things.
trash.
Yeah, it's all garbage. And when we meet our maker, he's not going to be like, "Oh, how many likes did you get on your post that you did on the 5th of November, 2008?" No, it's
That'd be a
going to
real
be
bummer.
right. Yeah, I'd be like, "Oh man, I guess I failed that one."
Shit the bed on that.
But yeah, it's going to be a real conversation when you meet your maker. And the more real conversations you have now, today, the easier that conversation is going to be.
And your life just becomes fucking easier when you live in the truth, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a weight lifted off you where you don't have to, keep up on all your bullshit all the time and put on or, it's great not living a life that just appeases people either, where you're just a piece of cardboard at that point. Um, and the way I look at it, uh, speaking the truth also edifies you as a person because it is very difficult to do that. Because if you do speak the truth, you are definitely open to ridicule and disdain and persecution and isolation.
I mean, look
Uh,
at Jordan Peterson. One of his most important dictums is to always speak the truth because you have free speech. And he is a big proponent of free speech. And he's being re-educated now by the Canadian government, so to speak, or the
he's
powers that
being
be.
put in the PC gulag.
Yeah, the politically correct gulag, exactly. And he has to have one-on-one conversations with someone that re-educates him on how to talk and how to act,
Sure.
and until this person is satisfied. That's horrifying. That's it, in order for
Comply,
him to
comply,
practice.
comply.
Yeah, comply, exactly. And that's evil. That is
Yeah.
against free speech. That is against that's someone else holding your tongue for you and guiding it. And that's complete bullshit. Thank God that in America we don't have these problems yet. But in Canada, they're starting to really come up against the wall. Um,
It's madness, honestly. And
yeah,
it's control. And speaking the truth and not being compliant means you're harder to control. You have freedom doing that. And that is not within the interest of any government. They want sheep. They want you to be easy.
Yeah,
They say they'll give
they
you
want
free
your
crap
vote.
for you to shut up. You trade your comfort, you trade your freedom for comfort or security. Um, and that also happens in friendships. Some people have stay in bad friendships or relationships because they just want to comply and make it easy, and they don't want to live in the truth of something that they know is wrong or that they know is not in their best interest. Um, and so we've all been up against that in friendships or relationships or whatever. Um, and it can really erode your soul in a lot of ways because when you continuously live in a lie, your self-worth diminishes and diminishes and diminishes because you have convinced yourself that it is better to live in this falsehood and in this wrong rather than to be free and loving. Um, and you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere you look. I mean, it's like, think about it this way. A lot of people don't want to leave relationships because they don't want to feel alone. They want some sort of company. And a lot of times that company is either bad, deceitful, someone thinking with their dick, being selfish, whatever. And those types of conversations are very hard to have. And those types of relationships are very hard to get out of. Um, so our position is to always lay it all out. Just lay it all out on the table.
Yeah, just be
You do it
honest.
in a loving way, but you just
Yeah.
lay it right the fuck out on the table.
Yep.
And then it lies where it lies. And if people love you, they'll either change or mitigate their behavior, or they won't. Life becomes a hell of a lot simpler when you're just straight up with straight up conversations, and they're faster too, because you get to the result quicker.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not, I'm not saying you got to be a bull in a china shop. You don't have to headbutt people, but just living a true, honest, loving life and communicating with people like that, it removes an entire level of slime from your existence. It really does. And especially if you're trying to clean up your act, like just being straight up, my God, it makes it 100 times easier. Because it sucks to lie to your friends. And it sucks to not tell them the truth. Because then you feel like shit too. You know, they're hurting themselves and you're hurting yourselves by not being straight up with them. So, at the Broken Network, our position is lay it all out. Be straight up as you can, as simple language as you can, in a humble, loving way, and everything works out the way it should. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I think, that ties in to what Alex was saying about Paul. You know, uh, you want to talk about a guy that lived in the absolute truth. I mean, he went blind from seeing it, and then he preached it the rest of his life. And you know, the way it ended depends on your view of things. It really does. I mean,
Yep.
he got his freaking head chopped off
Yep.
by the
Because he
Romans.
wouldn't shut up.
He wouldn't shut up. And if you live in the Christian perspective, he got a magnificent reward for that. But also, even if you didn't, someone who lives like that retains their honor and their pride. And when they went to bed at night, they knew damn well that they lived in the truth and that they did honestly what was in their heart. And that goes for everyone, not just religious people. It's just they lived with pride, you know what I mean? They owned their actions, they owned their words. And a lot of people did really magnificent things with that. And a lot of people really paid for it. But you know what? It worked out the way it was supposed to. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
I agree. And you know, they're Paul's not alone. You look at Saint Francis, one of the craziest sons of bitches ever to live, but also one of the holiest sons of bitches ever to live. And you know, he received the stigmata, which is the wounds of Christ. He had the holes in his hands and his feet and in his side. And that was a holy gift because of how much he aligned himself with the truth and love. And one of our favorite quotes by him is preach the gospel at all times, only use words when necessary. Um,
But think
unfortunately,
about his life for a second, okay? You want to talk about living in truth and honesty and rewards for that. He was in the 12th century or the 1100s, and he was in Italy. And at that time, Pope Innocent III was hands down, far and away, the most powerful ruler in Western European history. He had the most amount and greatest land holdings of anyone in history. He excommunicated an entire country. He was a trained lawyer and he was in his 30s. I mean, he was a brutal, powerful man. He had unbelievable authority. You get this guy in a fucking hair shirt, shoeless, showing up to his place and saying, "Hey, this is the truth that I'm delivering to you. This is what has been told to me. This is what's in my heart." And this unbelievable, temporally powerful Pope saw the truth in this man's words and began one of the first mendicant orders ever. If you look at that dichotomy, if you look at that, I wouldn't call it irony, but it's just like magnificent. It's too crazy to make up. But he did it with love and with truth and convinced the most powerful man ever to do what he asked. I think that that's pretty telling of living in the spirit of truth and love.
yeah, absolutely. You know, the more you align yourself with the truth, honestly, the easier things become. And it may not be your worldly understanding of easy, but it's your soul that becomes restful
Yes.
and at peace
Yes.
and one with the creator and being one with the highest power ever. How can you go wrong? You know, how can you go wrong saying we'll go back to um theosis, you know, becoming God through holy acts and being humble and loving and telling the truth and all that. You know, it's theosis is the most powerful force that has ever existed. And I think it's truly something that we're missing in a godless country. Um, you know, whatever your higher power is, you can achieve theosis. And it's becoming one with that higher power, whether you're, you know, um, Muslim or Christian or whatever you are, or you don't believe at all. You know, having some kind of higher power or higher authority that you respect is life changing because it takes it away from the self orientation. Being oriented by the self is hell. I've been there. You know,
Oh yeah.
I used to be very selfish and just do whatever I wanted at all times, and I thought that was adulthood. You know, the freedom to do whatever you want, and
And it left you with nothing.
it left me with nothing. Um, the more obedient I am to Christ, the more I feel at peace. because he
Or
truly,
if not Christ, obedient to virtue.
right, virtue. You know, it's wanting to become, if you lack spirituality in some degree in your life, then you're missing out on a lot because most things that exist in our human realm are metaphysical. They're concepts like morality. Morality we treat as objective, even though it's not objective. We treat uh physics as objective, even though it's constructs that we've made up to explain what is, the in human terms. So to an alien, our physics may not make sense. But to us, because we speak certain languages, because we use numbers, because we have an understanding of perception and we have an understanding of experimentation, our physics, we treat physical laws as laws, and they're metaphysical. The constants in the universe, they're real things, but we explain them in numbers which are inadequate to truly explain the fullness of them, but at least we can work with that. And it's about having an understanding of things that are invisible because those things are more real than physical things. Physical things age, physical things become dust. One day I'll be in the ground and worms will be eating me, you know, and that's my truth. But I believe that the things I do with my soul, the things I do with my free will, which is another
By
one.
the way, there is no such thing as my truth.
Yeah, my
That
truth is
phrase is
bullshit.
such bullshit.
Yeah, there's only one truth, and that's objective truth. My truth, yeah, you are certainly a thing that exists in your own context, but to say that your truth is trumps anybody else's truth or that your truth is uh objective is false.
This is a good example of what we're talking about. Let's say I go to Alex and tell him, hey, Alex, I identify as a 95-pound Filipino woman who's 5'1". That's my truth.
Should I marry him?
Uh, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get married. You know that I'm not 6'8" and almost 400 pounds. You know that I'm 5'1" and 95-pound female. So
Right.
what's living in the truth and love? Hey, buddy, I love you, but you're a moose. You are a human moose. You are not a 95-pound Filipino woman. Or for instance, okay, let's say Alex comes to me and says, hey, Tom, that chair you're sitting in isn't real. You just think it's real. I'd be like, okay, I have two answers to that. I could say I could hit you in the face and make you bleed, and then you tell me it's not real. Or I could say, hey, buddy, how about you sit in it and find out for yourself? You know what I
Right.
mean? That's living in truth and love instead of being an asshole about it.
Well, and that's the thing is that we all have different talents and we all have different charisms, so to speak, which is God-given talents, but they all come together in harmony in the truth and in love. And one cannot be used against the other. At least so I believe, and so Christianity believes. Um, so saying that I have a truth that's separate from somebody else's truth is bollocks. It's garbage. It's it's saying that I exist apart from you, even though I really don't. We all live in the same world. We all, yeah, I might be colorblind, but that's not to say that colors don't exist, that green doesn't exist because I don't see it. That might be your truth, but other people see it and it's very real to them. And it's a scientific fact that the color green exists. it's
And it's a scientific fact that I am not from Manila.
right,
Okay. I'm very Irish. I am not a Filipino woman,
right.
and me trying to say that I am and you being okay with it doesn't do me any fucking favors at all. You're just perpetuating a lie. And we do that as friends sometimes. It's just like Jordan Peterson got a whole bunch of shit a while back because he said a fat model wasn't beautiful, wasn't objectively beautiful. He got eviscerated for that. And because it wasn't nice, you know what I mean? The people have lived in the spirit of tolerance rather than objectivity. And that's why everything is garbage now.
Yeah,
Everything's in a free fall. You don't have any standards anymore when you tolerate everything. Look at New York City. I could walk around with a hatchet and bludgeon people to death and be like, no, bail, he's fine, whatever. Because we've gotten to such obscene levels of tolerance. And that is not loving people. That does not keep people safe. That does not work in their best interest. Love is sometimes having those hard conversations that you can't walk around with a hatchet and that you have to suffer consequences for that. That's loving you and loving your neighbor. And so, objectivity in truth and love is the position that we're trying to get at. And I think it's really worth a shot for people that haven't tried it. You
yeah,
know, it really is. What do you got to lose, right? If you're already living a total life of bullshit, it's going to keep being that way until you let the cat out of the bag. And then once you let the cat out of the bag in a loving way, then everything nets out. It really does. Yeah, it might sting a little bit once you rip the band-aid off, but once you're done with that, it really does become smooth sailing because life happens the way it's supposed to. And then you go to bed knowing that you said and did the right thing in the best way that you know how to do it. And that's how you
I
get
just
some
got
freaking
my third
sleep.
eye pierced, and now I'm Indian because
Yeah,
I
I
look
told you
Indian,
that
don't
already.
I?
I told you that already.
But no, I mean that's I got this piercing because I like it and it represents something cool to me, but that doesn't change my identity. That doesn't change who I am as a person. That just it's an expression. And we can express who we are all we want, but it doesn't change who we are. You know, to
My truth is that you're Beyonce.
I am Beyonce,
I
and
knew it.
all the
She gained a
single
couple
ladies
hundred
need
pounds
to
and
get a ring put on it.
get a ring put on it, man. You got to back that ass up. Apparently, she has halitosis.
Does she?
Yeah, that's a real bummer, dude.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
apparently
maybe
she's
she
a
could
major pain in the ass too.
eat less protein or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, eat less protein, maybe brush your teeth,
Maybe
mm,
brush your teeth and
brush
your
your
tongue.
teeth, wear deodorant. It's called Speed Stick. It's not expensive.
Expensive.
For instance, you want to talk about living in the spirit of truth. We and Alex watch a show that we're big fans of called Thousand Pound Sisters. And they are two heavy-set women living in Kentucky. And one could argue that they don't have the highest levels of education or decorum. Um, but it's like the way I see it, when they were like that, they would put on a dress or something when they were at their heaviest, and everyone would tell them they look great. You look so beautiful in that. You look so wonderful in that. That doesn't help them. That doesn't help them. You're putting a band-aid on it. No, you look like shit. You need to lose weight. That's the answer. I'm a fat kid myself, okay? I'm not going to go walking around here and saying, man, I look as good as Chris Hemsworth, okay? Because that's fucking delusional. I don't get $30 million to be in a movie looking the way that I do, okay? That's just not how it is. It's not how it is. And if you went to those people and said, you know what, that dress would look really nice if we got to some human figures. Okay. So I'm not going to go out and buy you 16 boxes of ho-hos. I'm going to go buy a salad. I'm going to buy some vegetables because I love you. And I could say a thing to myself, same thing to myself. You know, me living in the truth is, hey, listen, fat ass, stop eating so much bread and butter. Go eat a salad. Go eat some lean protein. Stop being an idiot. You know what I mean? Those are the things that certain people need to hear. Or if people start smoking cigarettes after they quit, you got to give them a little bit of crap
Yep,
once
that
they
was
do
me.
that.
That was
Isn't
me.
that isn't that right?
I had a particularly bad depression day, and I bought a pack of cigarettes, and I bought two more packs of cigarettes after that, and I have a pack sitting there that I haven't touched for a week,
That's
and
right.
it I fell off the wagon. Tom gave me shit for it, as he
But
should.
nothing. But the way I did it, it wasn't mean.
No, it wasn't mean.
It was jovial. It's like he knows he's lit, and that's what I'm talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. You don't hammer a guy if they fall off the fucking wagon. They already know it.
Right.
They already know it. You're not telling them something that they don't fucking know already. So you joke around, you give them a little bit of shit. You're still okay. I still love you. It's fine. Get on the horse. You know, it's just encouragement. That's living in truth and love. Hey, we have to amend this behavior. Or if I eat a whole fucking box of Cheez-Its, Alex is like, hey, you're being fat. You're being a fat ass. And that's exactly what he'll tell me. And we'll be joking around. It's like, but he's right. And sometimes I need to hear it. You get a little knock, it's a loving little tap, and then you get back on the horse. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, we all have our
that's what we're
weaknesses.
trying to
We
do
all,
here.
and yeah, the whole point is to get back on the horse.
Bingo. The people, everyone living in this country has already had their dick knocked in the dirt already. That's $200 to go to the grocery store. All right. Everyone's, working these, 9 to 5s wanting to put a bullet in their head, and if people fall into bad behaviors, that's just what they don't need is them to get a whole ration of shit for someone not living in their experience. You know what I mean?
Which brings us back to the truth and love. It's the more loving you can be about telling someone the truth, the more service you do to yourself and to them, truly. And, if me and Tom were huge assholes and we just preached against this party or that candidate or this way of living or whatever,
Nope.
we would get nothing. And we get
Because it's
nothing back.
obnoxious.
But we wouldn't be able to build any kind of trust with people because that's hateful, and
Look
we
at look
already
at the
have
sense
enough
that
hate.
let's take currency for example. Okay, money. That is a mutually agreed upon tender of commerce. A dollar is the same to you as it is to me. That's the truth of a dollar. That doesn't change because you want it to change. That is an objective dollar. Okay. Um, and it's the same thing with relationships. Hey, I did a bad thing. I know it. You know I did a bad thing. We both agreed upon it. Okay. So getting back to what we were talking about, just love people and be straight up. Don't fall into bullshit. It's so not worth it. Be honest with your friends. Lay it out. You got nothing to lose. You've survived everything else. You're still here. What's the problem in chancing it? Really? What's the problem in chancing it? There's nothing.
And if they're really your friends, then they'll stick by your side.
Or they're really your partner, they will. And
Right.
if you're not, God bless them.
Yep. See you later.
You know what I mean? But
As
on
you get
that note, I
older,
think this is a good place to call it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I just wanted to say one more thing, as you get older, you have less and less true friends.
yeah.
Um, People fall by the wayside, they have their own lives to live, and the people you really stay in touch with are the people that you love the most and the people that care about you the most, and you should cherish those friendships. So, being honest with people is probably the most service you can do for them in that context.
That's the greatest sign of respect,
Right.
is giving someone your honest opinion and truth and being straight up, because that's giving them the totality of your experience and your thoughts by saying the truth to them.
Yeah.
There's no greater sign of respect to me. Like when someone truly shares their opinion straight up, I'm like, wow, that person has valued me to share truth. And it's a really wonderful gift.
So yeah, we'll end it there and we'll see you hopefully next week. Thanks for
Yes,
watching.
sir. Thanks, guys.